Welcome to a webinar on eating peace. So you may be here and you've never met me before in your life, and you may have been in programs with me before, and you're here for the little summary of eating peace and looking at what's going on. These sort of live offerings tend to change every time I ever do them. But I just want to give people an overview and a sense of what it might be like to be in the eating peace experience and answer questions, but then also just leave this as a standalone experience or process, kind of a lecture with some exercises in it for you to do that may be helpful for you right now today. It's always coming to right now today, isn't it? Like that's the most important place, the most important arena that we're looking at right now today. We get influenced by a lot of things that happened in the past and are anticipating whatever's going to go on next in the future. So I'm just gonna like look at my notes and feel free to send questions in the Q&A. We won't really have a chat open, so it's not sort of like, I don't know, lots of distractions and all of that. But if you have a question, you can always send it in the chat. I may see that, but um, Q&A is probably the easiest place for that to go. All right. So I've done this differently in the past, and I've done it with a much more formal, entire set of slides and something similar. And I'm just because of changes a little bit today, I'm going to do it just kind of one-to-one and sharing. And if I think of an image or something that I've got that'll work and be useful, then I'll find it. But I really wanted to share three barriers. So I kind of titled this one, Three Barriers That Keep Emotional Eating from Emotional Eating in Place. Like, and how shifting them can really be like unraveling a huge ball of twine and getting the threads loose and seeing how it starts to just relax and be more of an experience that is really where you feel an empowerment that's actually very a positive empowerment. Like even though I use the word sometimes, like everybody does, kind of in control, there's just so much that's been done with willpower and applications. We'll talk about that. That it's that tends to very easily move us into a warlike experience instead of an eating peace experience. So I'm just going to share those and then how to work with them. So today, just so you can have that planted in here and just consider. So my story with food and eating feels like it's like a journey with, it's probably true for many of you, that was just gathered from years and then looking at all the experts and going to every single kind of program and trying to do mindset and feelings work and therapy and group behavior. And I was also inpatient treatment at a hospital because of how bad it was with my food and eating. And now my experience with food and eating is quite neutral, and it just continues to be that way. It's almost like I couldn't try, if I remember that, trying to get into super cravings and like battles inside, and yeah, I want it, but I don't want it. It just isn't, I just don't know if I could even find that, which is amazing to me. So I want you to know that that's possible inside one human being. Like we'll look at those people. I used to look at those people that had nothing around food and eating and didn't seem to be like pulled or sucked in or something. Um, no compulsion, no overing. Like what is happening over there? How is that possible? What's going on? And just think, there's no way I could be that same kind of person. And it's not true. So I just want you to know that it's actually very hopeful. And I think I kind of had that hope since I was very young. Like even at the very beginning, I remember being only about 20 years old and already suffering a lot from all the battle that it was going on. It kind of started at age like 13, 14. But so all those years and kind of like an argument with food and eating and my body shape and size. And I remember thinking, I can't have been born like this. I had a clear thought. I can't, I know I wasn't born with all of this mess, all of this noise in my head about this. I just ate, I don't even remember things. I remember the wonderful taste of food when I was a little kid, but I don't remember. I didn't have rules. Should I eat that? I don't know. Here comes a spoon towards me. I'm being fed. I, like, no, you just eat it and then you stop eating it. And kind of no, I don't know. There's nothing, even if you think you had troubles when you were a baby. I've heard people that say, but I had trouble when I was a baby. They told me about it. But is that, your people's stories about what they said about you, or is it, does that make it impossible to find, sort of a peaceful balance running here? No, I don't think so. It's something of the past. But let's just look at this in a simple way. So I just wanted to say I tried just everything, and I feel very fortunate that my journey led me to deeply looking at my identity and my relationship with reality, and that studying that and making peace with that is what really led to something that was a deep shift. So let's just look at these barriers. Okay, the first one, I need to fix like the past or fix stuff about myself, fix my life. I'll say a little bit, just noticing that I need to fix it, need to get it squared away before I can stop emotionally eating. I, I have benefited so much from so many therapeutic approaches, and each thing led to something new. And I know that's the case. I know that, I was guided here, and then that was useful, and guided over there, and that was useful, and then went here. It was a very, very windy, illogical road. Who knows? And all of it had very useful points, but I can see that in a certain way, it's when I start to believe or continue to believe or, have that inserted at some point that I have to heal these problems that I have or these ways of reacting or ways of responding to the world. I have to do something and have to go through my treatment, go through the therapy process and make sure that I do it differently. When I start thinking that, it gets to be bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm never quite there and always a little inadequate. And I'm thinking, I believe that my healing must be at to a certain level to feel peace right now. And I think that's worth questioning. You can almost get on like what I've heard called a carousel of psychological improvement, spiritual improvement. I'm on this path and I'm not there. And the mind loves to focus, at least my mind, on the imperfections and what's wrong. I could do it right now, like if analyzing the physical world, the food that I ate, or the body and the way it's appearing and showing up, and what could be done. Ooh, can we just tweak this? Kind of do that. I could totally do that. And it's a radical notion to relax It's like accepting all is not lost. I mean, we all know this in our minds. Nothing about the past will ever change. But surrendering to that uh, can feel a little bit different. And I just want to say, um, like everything else, there's a balance. You know, nonstop, I need to fix this about myself. I need to fix the past. I need to fix my responses. That can start getting, it's you're on the like a therapy train. So, do you really need to handle all emotions well before you stop overeating or stop binging? Good question. Um, I'm not saying that those, difficult emotions aren't handled better. It looks to me like they probably are in my mind and when I look at my own history and experience. But I think that's just a side effect. So, in other words, I really like this idea that, you can go through immense trauma. We all know people who have. We all have heard stories. And you can still have freedom. It doesn't mean, oh, that means that puts you in a special category where you can't have it. Um, so a different way, like turnaround in a way to that, a different way of being with that kind of idea is that, me or the past does not have to be healed. Shocking. It just needs to be understood with kindness or, who knows exactly what needs to happen, but what would kindness do? What would love do? So I love this question. It's in the work of Byron Katie, which I'll maybe say more about when a little bit later here. But many of you might be familiar with it, and it's how you even got here. Four questions and finding turnarounds. So self-inquiry, a deep and fundamental pillar of this eating peace experience, eating peace process, um, is the question, who would you be without the story that you're broken because of what happened? I mean, don't we, like if you sit down and somebody said, so why do you have emotional eating trouble? Why are you having problems? Why are you having problems with your compulsive behavior or, the reaching? Um, your mind might go right into, well, it looks like this is what happened, and then that happened, and I have that kind of story too. And that even may be quite genuine and accurate. And what if we just didn't even have a story at all, and we just start from this moment here, and we don't need anything extra special to achieve eating peace? So it's nice to have in our mind that we are going to achieve eating peace. There is eating peace that's already present in our experience. And if you want to even be inserting eating like some other kind of compulsion in here, um, that you already have that available here. It's kind of underlying everything. And then there's lots of little, weather patterns that kind of go on top of just sort of a foundation of being. So that's nice to know that I don't have to kind of hunt and keep trying to find it. So in that this place of needing to fix something about me and needing to fix the past so that I can stop emotionally eating. Um, there is a core aspect of that I love. I loved becoming aware of and supporting other people with, and that is just a sense of safety in a moment, sense of safety in life and being who you are. Feeling unsafe is like lighter fluid for compulsion. just feeling unsafe. So if we question or identify and question fear and anxiety and restless thoughts, that will, oh, you can really bring out access to a sense of eating peace, any kind of peace. So I like to, that I like that we're looking at calming the nervous system, really just relaxing the nervous system in this present moment. It's possible, it's totally possible. So a little story. Um, when I was in high school is really when this was sort of like, I mean, all the groundwork and all the mindset things and emotional experiences were just getting put in place, you know, to be somebody who would feel very obsessive, kind of turn my attention towards this one, like kind of staring at this one thing called getting the body right and eating the perfect thing. And I don't know, just expressing all my all my distress and discomfort by staring at that and focusing on that really like really harshly and hardly. But in that time, I was, the orientation towards life was you're getting through the school and then you're going to go off and go on your own. And I couldn't see much beyond past that. But I was on a gymnastics team in high school. I mean, I did a lot of different sports. And there was a magazine called 17. And I remember it giving like, talking about weight and diets. And but it just seemed like these people were, I mean, I couldn't even imagine the girls that were in there and how calm they were and how able and capable. It just seemed, just beyond me. And I wanted to be small. And there was a moment, you remember these vivid moments, really funny. They kind of have an emotional, I don't know, imprint on them. I remember being on the gymnastics team and being in rehearsal practice, being in practice, rehearsal practice, and one girl just saying, "Come here, come here." She just sort of gathered somebody else on the team, me and herself, and there we were in front of the mirror. And she said, small, medium, large. And she was saying large about herself and medium about me. And I didn't even want to be medium. I was like, I don't like being medium. I want to be small. Small is the only good thing. This is kind of embarrassing. I'm sort of like, ooh, just this averagey sort of something. And I don't like it. And I remember that moment. Also, another vivid memory in that time of high school was again being in front of a mirror, changing after swim team practice, a friend and me saying, ah, like looking at my growing hips. I mean, it's the right time for that to be happening at that age. And saying something to my friend, like, God, look at this. It almost looks like there's a shelf up my hips. And my friend said, oh, let me put my shampoo bottle on it. And ha ha ha, so funny. She pretended to do that. But I remember the moment and I liked that she was kind of lightening things up, but it was like as if I felt also a little slightly embarrassed, um, dismissed perhaps. And then there's the day that I left for college, which is the first binge eating experience that I ever had. And I felt very very strangely numb, like somebody who's walking through a crowd. So my parents had, I'm the oldest in my family of four kids. And so I'm the first one going off to college. And it seems like my parents are actually quite excited about it. And they've had a lot to say over the past year and all, done a lot of helping with getting ready for that. It's just what we do in this family. My dad's a professor. And in that, it looks like one of those, if you had in a movie, sort of foggy people uh, talking and adults and people asking me over and over again, so what are you going to major in? And I felt very strangely split. Like part of me is there behaving well, being polite, being nice, answering the same questions over and over. And like this whole turmoil is going on about whether I even wanted to go, that I could barely even uh, express. I mean, I just had no chance to even talk about that at all. Wouldn't even let myself see it practically. I don't even know what I would do if I didn't go to college. I'd feel like a huge failure at that time. But I just found myself eating and going back and getting more food and eating it and getting more food and just stuffing myself and not being able to stop eating. And so that was very horrifying to me, very, very painful. That was the first time that I left that, excused myself from the gathering. At the time, I do not remember any of my sisters being there, and I don't remember anyone my age being there, but I know that's not true. But it was just seemed like all adults, and that I was being shown off a little, like this is our kid going to college thing. Um, and I really don't know if that's the case. And I don't see that being a bad thing if that was the case. My parents are just doing what they thought was absolutely best. Very supportive people, really. Um, but I went up and I felt very, very determined. This time I am going to make myself throw up. I gotten some coaching on how to do it once um, from a friend, and I just was heard about it in different places, just a little bit. It only took one, and I just thought I'm going to do it. Saw in a movie once somebody who drank poison water and needed to throw up unless they were going to die. So um, I was very determined, and it was really difficult. It's not easy to force oneself to vomit, but um, I did. And I just thought that is the most intense thing. I can't believe that's happened. It's definitely happened to me, and I'm never doing that again. We all know where that goes, like how that works, because it's such a strange experience to be so overcome by that desire that you just stuff and stuff and stuff yourself. Just amazing. So, lack of safety. I had so much lack of safety. Um, it was just sort of permeating. There was a whole bunch of unsaid desires and wants and needs that were running, and some of them were quite old and some of them were newer. And of course, when I went off to that um, schooling experience, well, I shouldn't say of course, who knows what's going to happen, but um, I did not overeat, but I was kind of more like under eating, but I dropped out. Um, the minute I had another binge eating, which was probably about 6 months later, and just felt horrified. It was just such an overwhelming experience, so emotional and uh, s- so unable to speak about my own inner life and my inner feelings, and just feeling so confused by it all. So Pema Chodron says this: no one ever tells us to stop running away from fear. The advice we usually get is to sweeten it up, smooth it over, take a pill, distract yourself, but by all means, make it go away. We think that if we just meditated enough, or jogged enough, or ate perfect food, everything would be perfect. But from the point of view of someone who is awake, that's death. Seeking security or perfection, rejoicing in feeling confirmed and whole, self-contained and comfortable, is some kind of death. It doesn't have any fresh air. There's no room for something to come in and interrupt all that. We are killing the moment by controlling our experience. Very radical thing to say. But that's the kind of orientation that some people would speak to, or that was just pulling on the inside of me that I wanted. I didn't want it to be sedated or, you know, numbed. I wanted to um, have something come in and interrupt that all and not try to control my experience all the time, which was very familiar. It was already extremely familiar by age 18, like trying to do something with my inner experience, like, let me control the weather in here. So, the good news about that. So, if you have this, idea, I need to fix the past, need to fix my emotions. I need to, usually, often the things that we go to therapy for. Need to fix my, just get this squared away. Um, it's a little bit the opposite, but that's kind of good news because it means we don't have to get that focus on solutions, endless focus on solutions. It's almost like just learning to live with the problems. Yeah, there's problems in life. Problems, lots of problems. Jumping into problems, running into problems day after day. And it's really meeting those problems with a sense of understanding, maybe surrender, whatever it is that might, speak to you personally. But what a relief to be like, that's life, that with fresh air, um, the unknown, the great mystery. So just imagine that for the moment, this first barrier of that fixing urge to just enter despair or fear, disappointment, anxiety. Just hmm, aware that that's there and that it also passes. So that it's safe, I suppose, is the best way to say it. It's safe to um, experience life to the fullest like that. That's all right. I just really appreciate Pima Chodron over the years and what she shared. So, I have some wonderful teachers, which probably many of you also have the same teachers and have been familiar with them, but um, ha looking at their wisdom and what they speak to, which is often something that's very shared and universal. And maybe there's no new thoughts. I like how Byron Katie says there's no new thoughts. So nothing I share here is is new. And it's just coming out in this particular way. So, sure, each person has a unique life and shows up in a unique way, has a unique flavor. Use that word on purpose. And the collection of how things come together, unique, mysterious in itself. All right. So we'll talk more about addressing these barriers when I share about kind of like what eating peace experience or how I came to that and what it looks like. But let's look at barrier two. Cannot tell you how many times I've heard it from people, different versions of the same thing. I know what I need to do. I just need to get a plan. I just need to get some more discipline. I just need to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and da, 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 da. And I just need to, the thing, here's what I need to do. Of course, it's kind of like what I need to do, and it's looking into the future, but I need some sense of willpower. I need to be in control. Um, Discipline, it does promise some kind of peace, and there are many amazing things about discipline. It's not a bad thing in itself. I don't know. I just think of you know, step by step and kind of flows and efficient things and all the stuff that we see of like real disciplined nature. Um, Gosh, I used to be in marching band in high school, and you would march, and everyone had to march in exactly the same steps, and you had to have you brought your knee up straight across the line, and you marched, and you have to do it right on the beat, so we're all doing it at the same time, and that looks fantastic when everything's simultaneous, like one great unit marching together. So there's something about that that is really wonderful. And uh, well, I don't know, what do? We take it and we'd be like, I need more of that. That's what I need to get. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to double down. I remember hearing somebody say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to double down on my, food plan. And she was also putting locks on certain cupboards or something in her environment, in her kitchen or something, so that she would not she'd pause and remember to not get into the food, and wanted somebody else to have the combination. And so I mean, just so that was a fantastic example. I remember hearing her speak to that, of like, Beauty and the Beast story, about how there's going to be this witching hour that comes along and we're going to just be overcome by something. And we know we feel calm right now, but we know that also happens. And that's actually brilliant to know. But like, well, it's such a schizophrenic experience. And the way we usually approach that is like, yeah, applying more energy towards preventing that wild space from happening. So, what do we do instead? Because I find doing that, ooh, that, like, man, that is rough. That that's really hard to be um, tightened up. And I respect and honor, little bow to life with um, not just plunging in immediately, with comebacks or saying what you say, or, reaching for or eating the bite, or whatever it is, of course. So some of those pauses have been incredible for me in my life. But how do we look at that and look at that effort for finding force and rules and will, uh, you know, willpower there, is allowing all the parts. That's where I love some of the study that I've done with, it's called internal family systems, but even just the parts that I was finding before I ever even heard of internal family systems, looking at what aspect of the psyche is kind of wanting to have a say here, and wanting to, offer its solutions, and looking at all these problems again, but allowing all parts of those to be there and to be immensely curious. Curious. Um, I know we hear that all the time, but it's courageous enough to be curious. Just so simple, though. Say it again, being being able to look without force, allow all the parts, and ask questions like, what do I really need for? What's being asked for when this eating is happening, or when whatever this compulsion is happening? What is being asked for? What's being wanted? What needs to be expressed? So I found when the suffering and the all parts being allowed to come out and express, that things became far more resolved. So, so the story of the uh, willpower, from that kind of extreme, the emotional experience that I had, where everything was just, I mean, I was so suppressing my emotional life, and that probably been going on since I was a child, a little bit, like the way just even my personality and nature, the way I looked at the world incoming, and then kind of went like, what do I do with that? How do I digest this? So there's things like that that are unique to you. Um, so the way I was with it, and I thought, okay, there is a definite problem here. So I am going to definitely crack down. So I started to weigh and measure my food. I had kitchen scales and cups and amounts and numbers and logs and notebooks. And not that there's anything wrong with any of that. Um, I had things that were absolutely not allowed, but I treat like poison. Um, and I adopted that and I moved into it. And I felt like I was still holding on tight to my way of doing it to prevent like that chaos from coming back. So it was really interesting. Very recently, I visited Florence, Italy. The amazing opportunity to be in Florence, Italy. I was there like, only 3 weeks ago. And it was the first time I'd been there since 1981. I was a student in 1981 reattempting to incorporate myself into a college experience. Maybe it'll work if I'm in Florence, Italy. How amazing is that, right? It's incredible. But I was there, had my very set ways with food and eating. I was in the doubling down period. I was applying willpower and structure and control. And I did feel like there was a kind of entity on my back. Like I just have to I have to work with this, and this is what I have to work with. This is who I am. And there was a day when so there was, I have to eat these vegetables, right? And I'm looking for vegetables in the market in Florence, Italy, and I walk really far, like way up into the hills, and there is a market up there, and I see these balls of something that looks like, I'm pretty sure now it was probably just spinach, um, something close, and they sold it in brown paper packages. They just wrapped it up kind of like with one side with wax paper. And I didn't even know if this, I mean, I've assumed vegetables you can eat raw or you can cook them. I didn't have any place to cook. And we just had kind of a heating up kitchenette area for students. Anyway, I brought this thing back and ready to try it. And I'm put it on a plate and measured out my exact amount of cheese and melted it on the top. And that was my dinner. And I felt embarrassed, of course. I mean, it was like really weird meal in some ways to be eating in Italy. And my controller was in charge of everything. I was managing my every move. So I didn't want anyone to see me. There were other students that were in the program, and somebody did one day on this particular day and just said something like, "What are you eating? My God." Like which is a good question. And I was like, I withdrew even more after that. I'm not going to eat with anybody. I'm not going to join other students. I just remember as the most solo time. There was this part where people could go traveling together for a month and they assumed that you would be meeting other students. And I traveled by myself. So I was just completely alone and private, total, you know, anyway, I was completely in that willpower control. And I found later, I call that the red light eater. It's got rules and you know, things that aren't allowed and ideas about everything. Like not just food and eating, but there's right and wrong about everything. Relationships and how things should go and all of it. And then I called green light eater, the actual one that is saying, go, eat it. Eat, like wanting to eat as fast as possible. Now I see, and I loved learning in the internal family systems framework when I studied it, that, the firefighter is the one wanting to do the thing, just go for it, just all holds barred. I'm just going to take off everything that would, you know, be my discipline, and I'm going to do whatever I want. Like, yay, I'm let out of the box. And then the other one that is just so disciplined and so controlled is called the controller. But they need to talk. we need to find out who or what they are protecting. They have a role kind of in the way, the framework of how the mind is looking at things and with the emotions that are showing up. As soon as they do, amazing things can happen instead of them being like isolated in their own little units in the world, like people that live far, far away from each other and never speak. So that's exactly why some things began to work for me very well when I joined a therapy group. It helped a bit to have a one-on-one therapist who I began to feel more comfortable and safe with, but she was a person who knew the power of group. And so she had everyone get into a small group together. And she was like, it's time for you to go in a group. It's time for you to go in a group. And when I did, it was very, very difficult, but very, very helpful. So this remedy for that kind of, the fear and all the disruption that we have, and we look like, I need discipline. It really is love. And yes, courage is sometimes necessary. But so I like the question, what would love do? What would kindness do? A sense of a universal reality of love for yourself. And it doesn't have to be super complicated or like take years of kind of sorting through. It really timing doesn't matter, but it's to ask that question. It's a very deep question and inquiry, and allowing yourself to grow within. You don't have to have an immediate answer. So I love to see how that moves in the world and just sitting in the silence of that question and not jumping to quick answers. So just relaxing, relaxing. What I knew that I wanted at some point was definitely not something, I didn't want to see myself as somebody that had, like was born with something missing that needed a lot of some kind of discipline for the rest of my life. It's like that doesn't make sense for me, really. I think I want to find the place that was born without needing any of that, that was just here to be and be free when it comes to food and eating or any of these behaviors. And I think that many, many people can find that. So who knows what it looks like, but it's relaxed. So the extreme binging isn't, what we want. And the super discipline and kind of hyper, I don't know, hyper alertness at all times, like a military or something. That isn't what I wanted either. So I really think it's very important to question this one. I need more control and willpower. That's often got a knife, you know, that you're stabbing yourself with mentally. So, which leads me to the third barrier, the belief that it takes some kind of huge mindset shift and overhaul to be free. And maybe that sounds like it's kind of similar to the first, like I need to fix my whole past, or I need this giant overhaul. People say so many times, like, have you ever had friends that have joked, I need a lobotomy, or I wish I could, I wish I never had to eat at all or do this at all. I could just take a pill. Um, but it looks to them like so daunting, it just heavy. And it takes a huge mindset shift and overhaul to be free. Question it. Everything I'm saying, question it. So what if you don't need to get it together? You just need to have like an ability to question and unhook from these things that are not so true. So this year, not so long ago, I wrote an ebook, and it came out different than an ebook that I'd written in the past, called Food Won't Fix It. It's just that, that moment where it looks like, oh, food will fix this. It's very immediate, but like taking a bite of something, we'll eat it. We'll fix it. I'll calm down. No, well, then we'll look later at um, disciplining ourselves more or whatever. And that it just looks too daunting and big. But I like, in there, I explain how you know how to respond wisely already to every situation. You really do. And like grabbing a sweater when it's cold, you just do it. There's not a lot of I need some more discipline, so I get the sweaters when I don't go to, there's not a lot of noise and it's just sort of something is simple about it. There's not a lot of right or wrong on it, so you don't get really activated inside there. So just seeing it's in little tiny daily moment to moment micro shifts, if you might say, not giant overhauls. And we've all read about people. It's very inspiring when they have some sort of gigantic overhaul. Some of the people that I have learned from, like Byron Katie or Eckhart Tolle, have had these major shifts where one day it was like this, and then and the next day something is completely different. But I bet you've had little moments like that. Oh, huh, something looks different. Just hasn't been in your imagination the way it looks like some gigantic overhaul. And we know we hear from these people that it's not so peaceful to have a gigantic overhaul like that. Like, or something humongous happen where you almost, Katie, Byron Katie, forgetting who her family members were and kind of what was going on and any sense of reality in some points. So not so easy. So I was saying that like this giant mindset shift that we're expecting, or all this immense amount of work that sometimes the mind will go into how long that will take. But it makes it look like, there's something really wrong with you to need all this overhaul. And I feel like that self-criticism really leads to contraction, the like smallness, kind of a inward behavior, not transformation, which seems to come when you kind of like the you're inside a cave and then there's warm sun out there and you're coming out into the light and it's just relaxed and there's no storm and you're like can be out in the open. So we can question what's happening in these little moments when we think, my God, I need to be different. This is horrible. Not that there's anything wrong with having even those moments, but the self criticism, the self hatred that might even appear when that kind of thing goes on. So you do a behavior, you have a reaction, and then you're very critical of yourself. But what's wrong with me? So very common. So I will read this in the Eating Peace Experience every time, the Hafiz poem called Drop the Knife. And this is how it goes. Once a young woman said to me, Hafiz, what is the sign of someone who knows God? I became very quiet and looked deep into her eyes and replied, my dear, they have dropped the knife. Someone who knows God has dropped the cruel knife that most so often use upon their tender self and others. What a gift of wisdom. So that's what that comes from, just noticing that barrier. It takes a huge mindset shift. And I suggest, yes, it does take an identity shift, but that will kind of happen after the fact. You say, oh, I've had an identity shift. I wanted to be in this place of freedom around food and eating. It doesn't mean I don't have difficult feelings. I think what I wanted originally was to be like, oh, I can be peaceful and calm. Um, in every moment. No, there's things that I get frightened by or upset by or like sad or nervous, of course. And but it's kind of like being with those the same way we are sometimes with rain and wind blowing and stormy weather. Oh, that's the way it is. I don't love it if it turns into a tornado, and it is what it is. It's happening the way it's happening, and I can there'll be an after the tornado, and there's always something to do. There's always something to be with, or there's always an after. These things are the moving things, the moving moments of life. So I I like to tell this little story sometimes of way back. I'm sitting in a 12-step meeting because that's definitely I found 12 steps to be amazing for learning that people can actually talk about everything. You're allowed to say these things that are on your mind. You can act, in fact, it's even encouraged. I mean, I just was amazed the first time I went to a 12-step meeting and everybody's talking about their inner life and their experience and their emotions and embarrassing things they did, not trying to kind of, I don't know, cover it up or make it sound better or anything. Just amazing. So I love that. A lot of freedom. I did also, kind of latch on to some right or wrong that got going around it. And I'm glad to have released that. But I was in this meeting and I shared and I started to cry and I was in despair about this endless binge eating. And I'm not abstinent. That was the terminology used, and how horrible. And I just felt so terrible and a bad person I was. I can't get it and da da da. And I ended the share and just kind of felt a lot of like that, like shaking energy running through me and probably thoughts of like, I can't believe you just said all that. And it just moves on. The wonderful thing about the 12-step format is that it's like talking stick style. So you don't necessarily comment. Nobody comments. And there's no crosstalk. So the next person to share just begins to share where they are, their experience. That was actually a really good thing. So anyway, I'm in that meeting and big, huge row of chairs, large amount of people, and I see a movement of way around in this big curve of chairs. Um, and it's like moving, and I realize somebody's they're passing something from one person to the next person to the next person, kind of gesturing, pass it along, pass it along, pass it along. Yes, yes. And it finally, and it's somebody says, this is for you, this piece of paper. And it's all folded up. And I unfolded a little piece of paper and it's got this ballpoint pen written in very beautiful um, cursive writing. And it said a few things more than this, but the main thing I remember that it did have written on there was, you are engaging in negative grandiosity. So what an amazing thing. And it was said so kindly and with so much love. I didn't feel ashamed. I got it instantly. Oh my God, I am so good at being horrible. Like, let me tell you how horrible I am. And I understood in that moment that's what I was doing. So it was kind of like this, huge, there's something wrong with me sense. So the Course in Miracles has this lovely saying, whenever you become defensive about anything, know that you have identified with an illusion. And so amazing. So you can become identified with the illusion that's negative, like low self-esteem, a lack of power. I'm the one who's abandoned. I'm the one who is mocked. I'm the one who's rejected. These people ruined my life. This thing happened in my life, and that's why I am the way that I am now. And kind of get like uh, just bringing so much importance to these events and these experiences and this identity and my powerlessness and um, I'm worried then, and my beliefs are about being abandoned and impoverished and rejected and alone. Not enough, not enough. So these barriers, I'm going to spend a little time on them, but um, they're pretty big, and we focus on them. Um, focus. Well, we just know that they're there and they're present, and it's kind of the ability, the way the mind seems to work and how it is. And so, eating peace experience is really allowing all that to be present, you know, like almost befriending the nature of the human mind instead of using it against itself. It's almost like, your mind comes up with all these solutions, and your mind is the one like all in there, being so busy and then wanting relief. But I like looking at identity shift, but allowing it to be kind and loving and of your own pace, and questioning things that appear initially. So we're just looking at the thoughts that appear all in our little day-to-day experience, like, I deserve this treat, or, I have to calm down, so I'm going to eat some food, I must have this food. And just noticing and watching it and not feeling ashamed of it, being aware that it appears. And this is just my habitual way of seeing things. And then we bring in Byron Katie's work, the work of Byron Katie, those 4 questions and turnarounds to look at these beliefs. As these beliefs are kind of, down below, like sort of normal consciousness. They're in there though. If you slow down, you can kind of see, what am I thinking and believing? Sometimes I like, we do this in the program. As you move towards eating a meal or towards eating some food, if you find you have this urge or craving, write down 10 thoughts that are on your mind. It doesn't even have to be about food and eating, but it definitely can be about food and eating before you eat. And it's amazing just taking that little pause of a moment to write them down, how much that can slow things so that you're not sure that you really do want to eat. But so even looking at making friends with our emotions, which is one of our sessions, like looking at these emotions and these weather patterns like they're allies, not enemies. They look like such enemies to us. Like, I don't ever want to be jealous. I don't ever want to be angry. I don't ever want to be afraid. Afraid is like one of the biggest. I'm afraid of being afraid. And see, what does it mean to welcome them and have an interaction with our most terrifying emotions, and just be present, access the part that already is present, like be present. You're filled with all these things. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then just notice, well, even if in this moment of confusion, I'm just here. Many great thought leaders and teachers say you only need to be with this moment. But what a thing to be aware of, showing the calm presence of mind. Like, even before I was going to run this webinar, I'm looking at this way more formalized webinar that I've done in the past that has like 5 shifts to eating peace and slides for the whole thing, and quotes that I show on. And I thought, I'm just not doing it that same way. I can tell that's just the way of it with life. It's not something that gets fundamentally repeated in the exact same way. Things change. This next eating peace experience will change. There'll be different people. Some people will be repeating it and they'll have a different perspective than where they were before. So, and something here, the way it just seems to keep forming, or sometimes it just gets more and more simple. It just comes out like that. And that's what's happening this time. It's like there's no slides. That just didn't seem to be the way of it. This webinar came together very quickly. I only put the word out yesterday, hey, let's have a webinar. And it's on the same time that most of the sessions for the Eating Peace Experience meet, Sundays for 90 minutes, right at this exact same time that we're meeting right now. So let's just do it and we'll see what happens. So you know, you could feel the awareness of this moment right now. It's possible to, like, any one of us could probably answer the questions. You could, where are your feet? Kind of turn your attention towards your feet right now. Where are my hands? Where's my breath? Even just me saying that, then my own body kind of want to take a deeper breath. Oh, breath, okay. What's present right now? What's my like hunger right now in this moment? It's odd to put a scale on it, but sometimes that's the easiest way for like measuring or sharing with somebody else or sharing with yourself where you're like, if it was on a scale from 0 to 10, we do this in the Eating Peace retreat, eating together sometimes. If 0 is just you're absolutely famished, you're the hungriest you've ever been in your life, and 10 is you're completely stuffed, the most food you've ever had. Painful, painful. Both of them are a bit painful. And then notice where are you right now, in this moment. I'm very neutral, not hungry at all. Had a meal just before, not long, maybe an hour before we began here together. I'm just kind of totally at like a 5, if I had to give it a number. And just notice that I can do that in this moment. I know where my body is. I know I'm here. I know I'm here. So, what do I say in as a solution? If we're looking at solutions, looks like a problem. Looks like this thing's a problem. And I'm chuckling because I know it is. I know it feels horrible when it's a problem. And I now can even see, was it? Or has it been really good that I had my own compulsive eating behavior in my life? Because it really led me down the most curious and fascinating path of my entire life. I'm so glad I had this as something. I mean, I could say glad now, and I know it doesn't feel so glad when you're in it. I know, I don't wish myself to be there, but um, how incredible that, my life took a whole giant left turn out of the usual college expectations, understanding that I went on and had a master's degree in applied behavioral science, wanting to understand the mind and learn so much there. Powerful, ideas from professors and working with people, and then went into mental health, of course. Got really interested in mental health and all the kinds of things that happen for human beings that where it looks like there's suffering, and then studying suffering and in the spiritual world, or as if you want to call it that, spiritual world, just metaphysically what's going on and how are we leaning into this world, and even there, do I need to know anything more? Do I need to work on stuff, or could I just be free in this moment, present? So in the food won't fix it, is what I say. Number one, stop believing that doing that thing that you do, or eating, reacting, whatever your methods for solution method, whatever, stop believing, this is the way I put it, stop believing that eating is the best choice for peace. Or that it has just whatever your thing is, that's going to give me peace in this moment. Like I like Byron Katie. There's so much for her. She says, skip the middleman. The middleman is this activity or this thing or this that you need to do to get to peace. And I'm not saying that we don't do it sometimes. I mean, I'm sure I'm still thinking of, oh, if I just had a little quiet time right now or whatever, then I could be more peaceful. Um, it's just how the mind thinks. So that's okay too. All of it's paradoxical, I swear to God, there's no set answer. But that's a good one. To stop believing that this actual behavior that you do is the best choice for peace, like for what I'm seeking. Second, we look at, strangely, after all I've said, mindset change, like and making little tiny, those little micro shifts that are very safe. And because how did we ever get to have the kind of mindset and way that we're being in the first place? It's because you grasp this and these vivid things happen and things that happen like the ones I even shared with you from high school that I still remember so well. And they kind of go like, okay, that means, and meaning is made. You've got this little meaning making machine, mind, and it just builds up and it's got its perspective and its framework and the way it sees things. And it just looks like, um, very autopilot in some ways. Oh, this is what goes on when I feel distressed. I start to want to go to eat food. When I feel distressed, I want to scream at people. So I am interested in that shifting and changing. So what can I do? Like that's actually behavior. It's kind of like backwards from some of the stuff. Like I will say sometimes eating peace from the inside out, like having the mindset change and or the orientation change, the way I'm seeing, like being with the present and all that. And then, the symptoms just die away. I think that's definitely could be the case. But also when you don't do the thing that you really don't want to do, you just feel better about yourself. You feel better more quickly. So a couple years ago, I went through coach training for tiny habits and behavior change, and it was fantastic. And that was more like interesting things around psychology, but learning, little tiny behavior change. And I like dividing it into two things: mindset change for help with your own mindset change, and then help with your own actual eating change. Like, what would I really prefer as a being, a living being entity to do? Um, and how do I want to be with like my fear and my anxiety that shows up and my worries and my sadness? And that we can actually um, find ways to be with those that are more, they might not be like an end all solution, but it's uh, just feels better to approach it in that particular way instead of just fall into our very habitual way of thinking and seeing it and doing. So we do tiny habit mindset change. Oh, I want to share with you a really great quote from BJ Fogg, who's the creator of the tiny habits methodology. He's a really interesting, he's a professor and a researcher at Stanford University, and I thought he was just a delight. But he says this. I'm looking at my own, the Food Won't Fix It book. He's a really great one. Okay, he says this. Tiny allows you to get real with yourself and your life. Tiny allows you to start right now. It meets you where you are, whether your life is in a desperate spiral or you are stressed out but otherwise fortunate. We all have our own life circumstances to contend with, ways of thinking that aren't ideal, and quirks of psychology that hold us back. We could feel bummed and ashamed about it, or we could use the tiny habits method to hack the system. You can start to change without making a big scene. I just thought that was so sweet. It's so gentle. Well, what would just like, what can I do right now? What's today? And so, little thing to say first in the first piece that I meant to share, probably is a little bit evident, but that stop believing that eating is your best or only choice for feeling better. How is we question our beliefs? We question our thinking. We notice the beliefs that we just get so attached to and we just lock in on them around eating and a bunch of other stuff too, and question them. So a foundational pillar in the eating piece work that's always been there is to connect with self-inquiry. Watch your own unique ideas and patterns that appear in your mind. Have a thought and then notice what it is and question it. Is it true? How do I react when I'm believing that? Who would I be without this thought? And you can use your own brilliant mind that's gotten wherever it's gotten to actually unravel. Go back to that ball of string and kind of pull strings apart. I love this one psychotherapist who's done a lot of work with addictions, who says, his name is Lance Dodds, and he says, addictions are an attempt to preserve control over your feelings and your life and respond assertively to helplessness. So love noticing if the thoughts and feelings that are in there have to do with just being so helpless about life and discouraged, you can question them. And also Byron Katie, a thought is harmless until we believe it. It's not our thoughts, but our attachment to our thoughts that causes suffering. Attaching to a thought means believing it's true without inquiring. And a belief is a thought that we've been attaching to, often for years. So tiny habit work is quite in depth because we dive into it in the eating peace experience. So won't go all thoroughly into that today, but um, to create those for yourself, it's very possible to look at, mindset. I want to help myself create my a tiny habit that I'd like to incorporate into my life. Because what do I do? Why do I do what I do right now? It's because of lots of little buildup of tiny little incremental micro things, little tiny thoughts, all building up to have it show up the way it looks, the way it is now. And so it's very possible to just start where you are, be present, and make little shift, little shift, and little shift, and have it build on itself, build on each other over time. So, lastly, forgiveness. That is forgiving yourself and forgiving life for doing whatever it's done. One of my favorite, inspiring people in the world is Viktor Frankl for what he went through and what he had come up with before he ever went through going through concentration camp and then living through it and coming out alive on the other side of it and having to so acutely apply his own findings to his life in a concentration camp. But he said, everything can be taken from a human but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So I like to think of that as, you know, my human circumstance of who I am and then how my life has gone. And then my mind says it's good or it's bad. And it comes up a lot with that it's bad. This was a problem, and this was a problem, and this was a problem. Of course, we all know that's not in the present moment. It's not what's here right now. But it is like just the momentum of, life, just like moving the way it does. And I do know when we slow down our reactions and kind of make our being in our own minds safer in some ways, then it's possible to see more clearly and like to bring out the uncomfortable feelings up into the surface and help us work with those in a different way. So, Pima Chodron again. There has to be some kind of respect for the jitters, some understanding of how our emotions have the power to run us around in circles. Because of mindfulness, we see things when they arise. Because of our understanding, we don't buy into the chain reaction that makes things grow from minute to expansive. We leave things minute. They stay tiny. I kind of like that she has the same word, tiny. It's like tiny habits. They don't keep expanding into World War III or domestic violence or compulsive behavior, I say. It all comes through learning to pause for a moment, learning not just to impulsively do the same thing again and again. It's a transformative experience to simply pause instead of immediately filling up the space. By waiting, we begin to connect with fundamental restlessness as well as fundamental spaciousness. So, how does that fit into this idea of forgiveness? You know, there's such a sense of just, you imagined, what is forgiveness? And we look at that a little in the Eating Peace Experience program, but forgiveness, it's starts with forgiving yourself for being who you are instead of so critical. Sort of back to step one, just drop the knife in a way, it was one of the barriers. And but also forgiving life for doing whatever it's doing, like this idea about that Byron Katie speaks to in others, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. That's a radical perspective. I'm not going to be thrown off because of what life does in such a way that I expand that that experience that's happening and make turn it into World War III. Instead, maybe it coming into contact with me has it diminish somehow. There's a lot of you know, exercises and in a way work and just contemplation we can do with whatever forgiveness means for you, for us, for ourselves. But I love you right now, maybe for the end of this today, is just considering the wonderful piece. What if everything in however it's ever gone has been just right for you? It's not too much, or like I'm not the one who can never get it together. It's just been done the way it's been done, and that's all been very powerful learning. And now I'm I'm ready for something more because life is just bringing me more. I get to live this amount of time on planet Earth, and here I am now getting to have this new experience, this moment here right now, today. Forgiveness, forgiveness of the self. Isn't that just something? It's so to be able to see my own mind and my own body and my own eating that neutrally, to able to see it neutrally instead of like, oh God, that was so embarrassing, so shameful, so disgusting. But like, it makes so much sense how I've done it. So I think that looks like it might be it for today, and it's just about the right perfect timing. So let me see if there's any questions. Any questions? So Eating Peace Experience Program. We'll meet and we have like an hour and a half, and it's way more interactive. We don't do it in webinar style where it's just me talking and listeners. We'll have some of that, but we're sharing, and the the group is a very part of sort of the learning experience because it's really wonderful to be with others who are on the journey, and the amount of support that can happen there is incredible. Even with people who you might look over there and say, like, that person bugs me, they've got some aspect that's similar to you or something that you don't know how to work with, and so that comes up. Good. But sometimes, as we all know, people ask questions. Um, Wonderful questions that you wanted to ask. And so it just, anyway, it's way more. We do it on Zoom. We do it regular Zoom style so that everybody's in the same Zoom room. And we meet, and there'll be like a topic that relates to all these shifting these barriers um, and looking at them with, kind of freshly, differently. And creating our own little tiny habits and little movement so that it's something that we can do without discipline, willpower, heavy control, big tight fists like this, and far more just relaxed like this. And enjoy our day-to-day life with food and eating and having a body way more. But just allowing that to expand, just noticing and looking at these places that show up where we seem to want food. Um, yeah. And I know sometimes those are uh, they're in certain areas of the day. It's like timing of the day and what's been happening, what's going on. There's times of your day and times of your life where it's not going on at all. Nice to notice. So we kind of narrow in and look at the work and look at what's kind of fueling a continued off balance behavior. Because really it is off balance. It almost takes work and effort to be in there seeing it that way. I mean, we're caught in the way we're seeing it, but just trust um, we've got a strong ability to access steadiness, peace, unknown, allowing it to just be the mystery it is without having to know a bunch of intellectual smart answers. I know that's the case. If it took intelligence to overcome anything addictive, oof, that'd be a little funny for the setup of the universe. It doesn't seem to be the case. So you're just looking at being in touch with the part of you that's got an open, clear identity that isn't all busy with food and eating and managing life and surviving. So we just get to look at those, and we have 12 distinct sessions. And I'll probably be saying more about these if you're on my Grace Notes list. Um, I'll share more specifically what's in these 12 lessons that we have coming up over the course of 3 months. And I love all of it and the way it all happens. So you get unique time on your own way of seeing it and your own process. Um, Time, small group, so you get to ask your own questions and be willing to let yourself be known and share. So lots of time, like twice a week sessions in self-inquiry, as well as these sessions, these main sessions that we have for the course, which will be on Sundays. So if any questions come up about any of the specifics around that, let me know. We've got a week till the program starts. I'll share much more about that, I think, in this upcoming week in Grace Notes. But just see what rises because I love having questions, love answering questions. So thanks for being here today and being here on such a like in this just different way to do it. Very casual. Who knows what was going to happen? No slides. Just something that you can do something with, today in this moment, here, now. Just noticing those barriers, and those ways to work with it that I hope are really useful. Okay. Lots of love, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.